Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and completely decode the architecture of attention. Today, we're going to look at the exact scientific reasons why we get so easily distracted, and more importantly, how we can rebuild our focus from the ground up. If you're someone who constantly feels pulled in a million different directions, yeah, you're in exactly the right place. So, be honest with yourself for a second here. Do you feel like your attention span is shorter than a goldfish's lately? You know the exact feeling, right? You sit down to do one really important task, and literally 3 minutes later, you've got 14 tabs open, you're replying to an email that definitely could have waited, and you've completely lost the thread of what you actually sat down to do. It's incredibly frustrating. Honestly, it just feels like a total lack of discipline. Well, let me give you a massive sigh of relief straight from the source material. Your brain isn't broken. You're not fundamentally flawed, and no, your discipline hasn't just mysteriously evaporated. What's actually happening here is that your brain is just falling for a series of highly predictable psychological traps. It's like a giant puzzle, and once we map out these traps together, you can literally just step right over them. Let's look at our very first trap. Section 1, the urgency bias trap. Let's officially define this. Urgency bias is a psychological trap that makes you ignore what matters for what's loud. Think of it as a built-in cognitive glitch. See, your brain is evolutionarily hardwired to react to immediate stimuli, because thousands of years ago, a sudden noise usually meant, a tiger was in the bushes. Today, it just means someone pinged you on a messaging app. But here's the crazy part. Your brain processes that sudden noise with the exact same disproportionate life or death priority. Let's break down how this actually plays out in your daily life. Think about what's loud, okay? The notifications, the pings, the urgent emails, that sudden request from a coworker. It feels so fast, it feels immediate, and your brain actually gets a quick hit of dopamine when you react to it. But contrast that with what truly matters. Your deep work, your long-term projects, the strategic planning that actually moves the needle in your career or your personal life. That stuff is quiet. It doesn't ping. And because it doesn't shout at you, the urgency bias completely tricks your brain into putting it off. You end up trading profound progress for cheap, immediate reactions. And this builds right into our next psychological trap. Section 2, the serial position effect. Now, the research points to a major aha moment here. The serial position effect is the clinical term for our tendency to remember the beginning and end of tasks, but completely forget the middle. Seriously, if you've ever wondered why your desk is a graveyard of half-finished projects, or why you start Monday with all this incredible motivation but completely lose steam by Wednesday, well, this is exactly why. It's a scientifically recognized cognitive blind spot. Follow along with me on this timeline of a typical project. Look at hour 1, the beginning. Your brain is fully engaged. The novelty is super high. You remember starting, you've got momentum. Now jump over to the end at hour 5. The deadline is looming, the finish line is in sight, and boom, your memory and focus spike right back up. But look at hour 3. That right there is the psychological void. It's the messy middle. Your brain naturally disengages here. But listen, just recognizing that this middle dip is a biological certainty and not some personal failure is the absolute first step to pushing through it. Which brings us to a fascinating hidden mechanic of time management. Section 3, decoding deadlines, short versus long-term. The source research highlights something absolutely fascinating about how our brains process time. Short-term deadlines, they're processed by the brain with immediate urgency. They trigger action right now. But long-term deadlines, they're processed entirely differently. To your brain, a deadline that's, say, 6 months away is incredibly abstract. It almost feels like it belongs to a completely different person. Like, oh, that's future use problem. And because it's processed so differently, it almost always gets delayed. The brain simply cannot muster the same chemical urgency for a long-term goal as it does for a short-term fire. Makes a lot of sense when you think about it, right? So we know the traps. We've seen the architecture of our distraction. Now let's shift gears to the solution. Section 4, commanding your attention. Now, while the foundational research actually highlights a full 12 different mechanisms behind how we focus, we've extracted the absolute core architectural pillars for you today. The whole goal here is to take this science of distraction and reverse engineer it into the science of focus, giving you real, actionable control over your day. So here's the crucial point. Awareness is literally your ultimate weapon. By understanding these specific mechanisms, you can actively recognize the traps in real time. When your phone pings, you can label it. Oh, that's just urgency bias. It's loud, but it's not important.
When you feel your motivation totally sagging on a project, you can tell yourself, okay, this is just the serial position effect. I'm in the messy middle, I just need to keep pushing. And when you have a massive long-term goal, you now know you absolutely have to break it down into short-term deadlines, because otherwise your brain just won't process the urgency. This is exactly how you bypass the traps. This is how you command your attention.
Which brings us to our final thought. The architecture of your attention is entirely in your hands now. Knowing your brain's traps, what loud distraction will you actively choose to ignore today so you can finally focus on what truly matters? Do me a favor, take a look at your to-do list right now. Find the loudest, least important thing on there and just cross it out. Reclaim your focus. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely can't wait to guide you through our next topic.